One of the things I've noticed, and I noticed it today about this antinatalism stuff, is as how people polarise it into the antinatal and then the other side, which I think you were arguing about, Corey, earlier on, in terms of trying to find a name for it. Whether that be pro-natal or natalist or anti-antinatalist or non-antinatalist. And, although it can sound a bit like a word game, I think there's something more going on behind that, actually, to do with how we categorise these things and understand them. Because I think it's much more, not more complicated than that, but I think it's richer than that, really. And because let me just see if I can sum up what I take to be a version of the antinatalist position, and I'm probably stereotyping it, characterising it wrongly, never mind, which is that, if you're an antinatalist, you try to see the life game, or at the very least a sentient life game, and believe you can run some kind of an evaluation on it, like it's raining. You in the same way that if you can look at a casino game, a game in a casino, and you can run an evaluation on it. With a casino, it doesn't take a genius to realise that there's more losers than winners. The thing that keeps you there is the possibility of winning, even though that's not the winning itself. And at the end of the day, you walk out with pieces of paper with pictures of faces on them, An antinatalist, or someone who's not invested in the life game, would run a similar kind of analysis of this. It's a bit like a casino. There's probably more losers than winners, but in this game you don't even get to walk out with tokens. You don't go anywhere. There's nowhere else to go. You die and your tokens stay behind. So that's a kind of an antinatalist position as it's being offered. Someone who's counter to that position would perhaps, I suspect, work from the same premises. Yes, you might not want to use the word game, but yeah, there's a set of systems in operation here, and there's positives and negatives and winners and losers, and those things are in place. But we'll probably come out with a different kind of analysis. You run the cost-benefit analysis on the life game in that case, and you come out with it broadly positive. Broadly positive. Okay, so that's a difference, yeah. And presumably, if such a cost-benefit analysis could be done, then there'd be a solution to that, and also perhaps some proposals about, whether the game could be changed to make that outcome different. I don't know, but that's the position. But that's not the same thing. To say that someone is invested in the life game and someone is disinvested in the life game, or comes out with one result to the analysis of the game, and other people come out with a different result, that's not the same thing as natalist, antinatalist. Because there's different ways of approaching that, isn't there? Like if you come out of that thought process thinking, hey, this game is a bit like a rigged game in a casino, it's not good, then antinatalism, not throwing children into the game, is only one response. You could go down the mass suicide route, couldn't you? You could say, well, the right thing to do in this situation is for everyone to commit suicide, do Jonestown on a huge scale. That would be one way of dealing with that problem, if you identify it as a problem. Or you could talk about genocide. That would be another option. Genocide. Or you could talk about something slightly more benign, like, particularly if it's sentience and suffering that's your problem, you could talk about something like mass anesthesia. We could find a way to anaesthetise us all, so we're constantly, all our senses are constantly blunted or slightly raised, our spirits are slightly raised chemically. That would be another option, wouldn't it? So there's a range of solutions to that. And to be honest, for me at least, out of those choices, euthanasia, genocide, mass suicide, flattening of emotions chemically across the spectrum of human life, or antinatalism, I would say antinatalism was the most benign. And of course, I'm talking about all these being worked out in a society in which those things are all voluntary, it's all done democratically. We're not talking about fascist states here in which people crash into your bedroom and do any of these things. It all happens voluntary, whatever it is. But out of those choices, given that stipulation about voluntariness, then antinatalism wins hands down for me. But then on the other side, the non-antinatalists, anti-antinatalists, natalism. Natalism is only one possible answer to the response to the life is good equation, isn't it? You know, if you come out of that cost-benefit analysis thinking, actually, this life thing is good. Yeah, it's got its downsides, but generally, on the whole, it's good. Meaningful, fruitful, profitable, interesting. Yeah, well, you know, throwing new babies into it is one solution. But it's not the only one. You could also go for something like life extension, which I think is something that you mentioned, Corey, Professor Anton, in the comments section of the last video. You know, you could do the Aubrey de Grey thing and go for life extension. How long could we make those who want to, of course, it would be voluntary, those who want to stay alive, stay in the game. So you wouldn't need to bring any new ones in. The ones who are alive could stay there longer. Or you could do the transhumanist thing. You know, migrate away from the fragilities of a carbon-based life form towards something more robust, like silicon and steel. You know, we could do that, or at least talk about it. I know this is science fiction, but this is all science fiction, isn't it? And actually, the discussions about life extension and transhumanism are far more advanced than the antinatalist ones. But, yeah, we could do that. That's another option. Or we could do the virtuality thing. Virtual reality, could we do that? That's an option. Think about that. Okay, you like life so much, let's move it into the virtual. Or you could become radical vegetarian. I know it doesn't sound connected, but if life is your game, if life and sentience is the thing that you value above all, and not any particular life, just life in general, you know. Sorry, I'm under cover of the camera with my hands, it's pissing down here. If life is what you value, then of course, why would it be just human life? Wouldn't, you know, anything that's sentient would necessarily be a carrier of that value. And so, of course, you could become radically vegetarian. I have to say, just as an aside, I think it's quite interesting that some people who are arguing against, not all, but some people who are arguing against antinatalism on the grounds that, you know, life is sweet and life and sentient life forms have these pleasures as well as pains, seem to conveniently forget that equation every time they drive back to McDonald's and they're hungry. But that'll be another response, you know. So out of that set of responses to the realisation that life is good, natalism, having babies, is only one of them. And quite frankly, given those choices, I think it's probably the least benign. It's got the most uncertainty attached to it. You know, if you went down the life extension route, you know, only those people who are fully appraised of the facts prior to moving ahead with it would actually go ahead with it and decide to stay in the game aside of free choice. So, yes, I just think it doesn't just resolve down to natalism, antinatalism. It's about quality of life, or it being positive or negative somehow, according to some measure. I don't know how you'd measure it. And then the various different responses to that measure, with not having babies or having babies being only one possible parameter that you can put into that mix. And after that note, I'm off out of here because it's pissing with rain.